Hey, what's up? This is Max Kline, co-founder and co-executive director of Rhythmic Mind, and I'm here with my brother, homie, you know what I'm saying, none other than Lush One, you know what I'm saying, battle rap pioneer, um, entrepreneur, MC, you know what I'm saying, just hip hop aficionado. It's my man right here. We go back, you know, we go back almost 20 years, you know what I'm saying? So
Decades.
it's a pleasure to be doing this shit with you, man. It's hella good to see you. Hella good to have you on here. And yeah, anything else you want to say about yourself to the people before we start?
It's an honor to be here. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a dude that pretty much found myself through hip hop, and I'm living on a spiritual basis every day to try to better myself and my environment and add to the stream of life as opposed to take away from it. You feel me?
Word, word. Yes, sir. Cool, man. Well, yeah, the question for you today is how has hip hop been healing and therapeutic for you in your life?
Absolutely. Well, I would say off top. So my relationship with hip hop started at a very young age. I'm 38 years young, going on 16. I was 4 years old the first time. I have older brothers, and they're 12 and 14 years older than me, and I grew up in Los Angeles, California. So they were big fans. My brother was a huge fan of gangster rap. Not only gangster rap, like he was a big fan of Eric B and Rakim and Run DMC and Beasties and all that. But even before those dudes were out, like in 1986, which I think was 85, 86, my brother showed me 6 in the Morning by Ice-T.
Mm.
And the first time I heard it, something resonated with me. I don't know if my mom was just had headphones up to her belly when she was pregnant, attached to um, James Brown drum loops on repeat or something, but there was just something that really resonated with me about just the beat and just what the way he was talking, and just obviously being young, like the brashness, and really just spoke to me. I had never heard anything expressed like that. And I was shortly thereafter was listening to Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Too Short, all like, so, really probably a little bit earlier than I should have been listening to it, in all honesty. But it definitely spoke to me. And then by the time I heard Rakim and MC Hammer, you know what I mean? Tribe Called Quest, but Hammer was like a huge influence.
Mm.
And it spoke to me. I think that being someone that always had an interest in words and poetry, it seemed like a really cool outlet and a simple way to express myself and break down complex thoughts in the most concise way possible. And we're like, hip hop was like a porthole into different worlds. You know what I mean? Like it's like literally having a passport. You don't need to leave your house, but you're introduced to so many different aspects of regional culture. You know what I mean? Like learning about, this is the slang in New York. This is the way they're talking in New York. This is the way they're talking in Miami. This is the way different. And I feel like it's such a reflection. Hip hop is like more than any genre of music, and it's bigger than a genre of music because it's a whole culture. You know what I mean? Like you got the breaking element, you got just the different dance styles, you got the different graffiti styles, you got the different styles of beats. Like I would say something that always stuck out to me about hip hop is how the hip hop of specific regions are a reflection of the music of that region and the style. Like in and on two different levels, the way the music that people listen to, and the way that the way that music is actually performed. So like in the East Coast, in New York, jazz music is really popular. You got the classic New York jazz, Blue Note era, all of that. And a lot of the beats are always really jazzy, had the samples, you know what I mean? And people listen to music out of boom boxes. So like that's reflected in, it's not as bass heavy. It's just, but you have the boom bap, you have the samples, and it's kind of like a jazzy vibe. And people are slapping it on the boom boxes, and that's reflected through the hip hop that people listen to. In the West Coast, we're we came from big dance parties, roller rinks, all that, listening to music in car stereos blaring, you feel me, 12s out the trunk. So that's why there's a very prevalent funk influence in all of our music. And you could hear that going back to, like I said, Too Short, going back to DJ Quick, Compton's Most Wanted, going back to NWA, like Rodney O and Joe Cooley, World Class Wrecking Crew. That's like the foundation of West Coast hip hop is the funk. And in the Midwest, it's blues. And you can hear that reflected in the bounce and the country and blues. And you hear that all through the bounce and the double time flows of Twista and Bone Thugs and Nelly with country grammar. And it's just a big reflection of that. It sounds like a long winding dirt country road, you know what I mean? Like, and then Chicago blues obviously being a prevalent influence. And then you go to the South. Well, the South is marching band culture is huge out there. And at the HBCUs and all that, and you could hear that like I would say that Dirty South production with the double time snare rolls, and you know what I mean, like in the blistering hi-hats is like a real reflection of that. So to me, that was the fact that hip hop was able to take you to so many different places, and you could learn about the different provincial cultures and intricate slang, and find a way to express like my own culture and where I came from, which, you know, being from West LA, so many, there wasn't really a strong representation of my specific region in hip hop. Now there was artists from the West Side, but when you think of Los Angeles rap, you're mainly, especially at the time back in the, you know, early 90s and all that, you would think of the gangster rap of South Central LA, or even the alternative rap from Project Blowed out of South Central, and you know, the Chicano rap from the East Side. And there wasn't really like a strong West LA representation. So I was like, well, how could I speak about my people and where we came from, and what it's like with the, you know, our whole way of getting down and the way we move, and, you know, the graffiti culture out in the West Side and all that. So I put that on wax and was really influenced. And, you know, battle rap being a huge, like, you know, it was like, wow, I honestly believe if people are analyzing who are the most innovative poets in the world right now, who's pushing the English language to the greatest degree, it's not people doing slam poetry. It's not, you know what I mean? No disrespect, but it's hip hop, and in particular, battle rap. These are people like freaking literary devices, double entendres, you know, metaphors and similes on a unforeseen level that's really never been seen before in a songwriting context or in any literary context. So that always really appealed to me. And being somebody that always felt like, damn, you know, like being from West LA, where it's one of the most densely populated parts of the world, literally, like it's one of, like in America, like besides parts of New York where I come from, is the most densely populated region in the country. You know what I mean? Like we're, you know, it's not quite the same as like Mexico City or, you know, like Hong Kong, places like that, Tokyo, but we're right up there. We're right behind that. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
And it really gave me a sense of like almost being invisible. And I had to like, what could I do to let the world know that I exist? I don't feel like I have an identity that anyone can see, and hip hop gave me that voice.
Word. So yeah, like so you said a lot. So I kind of want to unpack
A lot
a
to
little
unpack,
bit of like those different aspects. And I'm also wondering, like, if you really take it all the way back, you know what I'm saying, when you first like discovered hip hop, not only what you were drawn to about it, or what all the different qualities that, you know what I mean, that you wanted to kind of express from, you know, yourself, is kind of what I'm hearing, your voice and giving voice of your own environment, right? That sounds like a big part of it. But yeah, there's so many things you said, right? You talked about like the way that the region, kind of like the culture and the energy of the region comes through in the music. My co-founder, Jonas Scott, he talks a lot about something called terroir with wine, right? Where it's like the grape and whatever soil that grape comes from changes the flavor of it, right? And he kind of has this whole metaphor he uses with hip hop, like where it's like the terroir of the music is like because of where you can kind of tell where it's from when you listen to it. So I feel
Absolutely.
like that's kind of what you were saying, which, really deep if you really like think about it and go down that rabbit hole. That's pretty
Yeah,
deep
it's primal.
for sure. But so what I'm curious about is taking it back, so beyond just that, like the energy of the environment and all these different qualities that you kind of like saw represented in hip hop, especially from your own kind of region and environment and how you were trying to bring something to it. So what I'm hearing from that is like you felt like it gave you a way to express yourself and have a voice that would kind of accurately reflect your own life and experience and environment in a way that maybe nothing else could, or that like really allowed a space and kind of a conduit for that. So that's kind of what I'm hearing. Would you say that's right?
Very accurate, and I like that terroir is that you said, like that's
Mm-hmm.
might need to borrow that. Shouts to the play upon of Jonah for that.
For sure.
That's raw. Um, yeah, absolutely. There was like starting out at a young age and just being a writer. And I'm saying, like, I was writing poetry in age 5, 6 years old. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
unprecedentedly
Mm-hmm.
young.
Yeah.
I don't want to say precocious because a lot of it was pretty basic, but I was writing at that age, and it wasn't, there was no real outlet that I felt like would resonate with an audience. You know what I mean? Like it was just
Mm-hmm.
something that I couldn't take outside of the bedroom. No one would
Mm-hmm.
really hear it. And hip hop was like, okay, the beat was so appealing, and the way it made people move, particularly in that era, like the early 90s, late 80s, people were really dancing to the music. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like crazy. Like that was a huge thing that, there's still movement involved in the physicality of hip hop, but it was way more prevalent at that time. And
Sure.
to me, like that was like, okay, this is a way that I could move bodies and minds simultaneously and just
Mm-hmm.
tap into people's energy and express to them
Mm-hmm.
my truth and my reality. You know what I mean? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it became the vessel for my inner thoughts. It became my entire outlet. It epitomized the way that I spoke, the way that I dressed, you know what I mean? Because like you would think that a bunch of people following us, like it's not about following guidelines. Like hip hop to me was always about using the minimalistic tools that I had at my disposal, or
Mm-hmm.
lack thereof,
Mm-hmm.
and creating my own identity from it, and like
Mm-hmm.
expressing myself to the utmost capabilities. Like all you need is a pen and a wall, and you can write
Mm-hmm.
your name on it. You know what I mean? And the way you formulate those letters, like it's unique to, yeah, it's everyone's doing graffiti art, but the way I would do it, it's unique to myself, and it's an expression of my pain, my
Mm-hmm.
experience, my life, my fears, the way that I rhyme, the voice that I have, you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
is unique in and of itself, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody else has that. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
could take these two, like you don't have any instruments, take these two records and find one loop that resonates and just play it over and over again. And you know what I mean?
Most that.
Only the part that I want to hear, and make a beat out of that. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
no two individuals are doing it the same way. That's why originality, B-boy rule number one from the
Yes,
Jump
sir.
Street. And like, and to this day, I feel like that's prevalent because there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of imitation, but when things truly resonate and stand out, it's the originals, it's the
Yes.
trailblazers. And sometimes when you hear that off top, it's disconcerting. It's like, what is this? I've never heard something like this before. But then that's because that's the next wave. And then sometimes it's just simply Wizak. You know what I mean? Like,
That's for real. Uh, yeah, man. So yeah. So again, getting back to like that original, like kind of, because we talk a lot about like shit. We talk a lot about it in Rhythmic Mind. The work that we do, which is like, hip hop is so fundamentally, kind of inherently like healing and therapeutic and transformative, because it's all about like what I heard from you is almost like you're kind of like calling on and manifesting from your internal resources, right? You have nothing. You don't have, like you said, you just need a pen and a wall, or what, you know, 2 records, like creating something out of nothing, but also like you're using your own resources and finding your own voice, right? And your own unique, like whatever it is that you want to say, whatever it is you want to express, whatever it is that you feel like gives you some sort of meaning or, you know, an identity kind of. So, but what I was kind of hearing from you too is like, you know, well, I guess what I didn't fully hear is like how I'm curious about how that maybe helped you. Like how for you was that? Did it have a positive impact on your life? How was it healing and how did it transform you? How did it help you? How was it like therapeutic for you in that process?
For me, like I always was a deep thinker to my own detriment. You know, I was very plagued by worldly thoughts and heavily weighed down and what was going on in my environment and just the world at large. And it gave me a tool to express that, because without that, I would have just been alone in my thoughts and felt like there was nothing I could. That was my way of fighting back against the world that I felt like was trying to hold me down and didn't want to see me shine or see me win or see me succeed. Or, you know, like there's growing up, especially in LA at the time I did, like during the LA riots, there's all this crazy activity going on. You know what I mean? Like gang violence, you know, like the whole entire world around me. And then not to mention the political climate was just so intense. And being aware of that at such a young age, because you couldn't help it. It was like, it was everywhere. Like I knew what crack cocaine was when I was 5-6 years old. And you know what I mean? Like, and just being, and that was the only way I could really conceivably stay sane throughout a world that was completely insane. You know what I mean? Like it made me feel at ease. The only time I felt like I belonged, giving me, like I said, like a whole entire sense of identity, a persona, but not like a quasi persona. And I'm not going to say I found myself through it overnight, but like really like tap into my authentic self. There's nothing more primal than a beatbox and rhyming over it. That's like literally the most primal form of expression. Like forget even drawing on a wall. Like how about bleeding on a wall? Like this is like straight talking from my soul. And like being able to do that made me feel like no matter what was happening, like I had a voice. Like I had a purpose. It gave me a sense of all of that. So to me, yeah, it was immensely therapeutic. It was essential to my growth and development. It is the quintessential tool for my personal growth and development was hip hop and my expression through that medium.
Most def, yeah, that was very well said, man. I'm also hearing too, like what you said is like it also get like you said, like you didn't feel like you belonged before,
100%.
right? It's like so it gave you like almost like a way to feel connected, like to yourself, to other people, to the world, like to find a community that actually made you feel like okay, like I actually belong here. Like maybe you didn't feel like you belonged until you discovered that. That's kind of what I'm. That's kind of
100%. You know what I mean? Like I tried, you know, I was playing team sports from a young age, trying to skateboard from a young age, doing all that. And it was fun and I liked it. And, you know, I had my little homies and all that, but like I never felt like I had a place. And it's crazy because during that time period, hip hop there wasn't that many active people of white descent in hip hop culture whatsoever.
right,
You know what I mean?
right,
So you would think that would make me an outsider, but like I felt more included by the hip hop community, which was predominantly Black and Latino almost exclusively at that time, than I did being around a lot of the white kids that I grew up. You know what I mean? Like, because at the end of the day, in hip hop, it's not even about race. It's about, are you nice with it? What do you have to bring to the table? Are you being genuine? Are you a dope MC? You know what I mean? Like, are you a dope artist? Like, are you trying to work on your skill set? Are you willing to? So to me, I transcended racial, socioeconomic, all them boundaries through hip hop culture. And like, you know, like to me, like, yeah, I never felt as much love as I did being around that culture, being around hip hop, and like felt way more accepted even before I was dope. Just me showing the willingness when there is like a senseless barrier of lack of understanding and fear that created, that's what the racial line was, you know what I mean? It wasn't anything that truly existed, you know what I mean? And it definitely wasn't on the side of the Black and Latino folks. It was the, like, a lot of white folks being afraid doing, you know, they would listen to hip hop music and like, but not fully embrace the culture, and definitely not, they weren't venturing south of Exposition, you know what I'm saying, Boulevard to go to those events, you know what I mean? Weren't even going south of Pico Boulevard, a lot of them, you know what I mean? Like, so for me, just having, and it wasn't even like an element of fear, but it's like this false sense of fear that are placed in people, like, oh, it's going to be all bad for you over there. They're not going to, the people aren't going to rock with you. You know, you might get robbed, you might get beat up just for being there. And, you know, and like me being like, not oblivious to that, but just fearless in traversing that barrier and just going into those sections to participate in the culture before I was even super nice with it. People like were instantly like showing me love. It wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like maybe at first we're like, yo, is this an undercover cop or something? But like, you know, like after that, it's like, nah, like white boy gets down with this. He's like, they could tell that my heart was in the right place. I was genuinely about the culture, and that's been the people that I'm rocking with ever since then, you know?
And that's the thing about hip hop, right? Is
culture.
like 100%. I mean, and that's the thing about hip hop, right? Is like the authenticity shines through. And what I'm hearing from you, what I heard from you is like you were speaking to how it's a truly universal language. So it really breaks all these different barriers of culture, race, socioeconomic, all these other things that keep people divided. It literally can transcend and break through those barriers because it's a universal language that allows people to see, that allows people to actually be seen like for who they authentically are, and be heard and seen. And so I'm also, what I'm hearing is like that's how you felt, like you were able to be seen and heard for your authentic self, for who you truly authentically are, what your truth is, and being able to like have that really acknowledged, you know what I mean? Because there wasn't all these other things in the way that like that can obscure that, because hip hop can kind of break through all that as this universal language, because it taps into something deeper that allows people to just kind of, if you have skills and you're and it's coming from your heart and coming from an authentic place, like you can't knock it, right? So that's kind of
100%.
That's kind of what I'm hearing from what I heard from that part is like not only is hip hop a universal language, but it really allows and allowed you to really be seen and heard in a way that, you know, really nothing else, you know, could or did up to that point.
It's like when people ask you, do you like this song? Or you enjoy, what do you say? You say, I'm feeling it, or I'm not feeling it. So like look at the actual language that we're using, like feel, because it's literally, it's not, it's soul to soul communication. That was my soul breaking free and talking to people. And before I even had the flow down, before I even had the proper words to express myself, my genuine nature, my essence is coming through. People feel that. People feel when you're being genuine and you're expressing your truth and being yourself and just capturing the moment and being honest. So much about it is honesty. And people like, you know, like that's why a lot of, when you're being inauthentic, on the inverse side of all of that, when you're not being true to yourself, that it shines through. You can have all the best words. It don't even matter. But if you're not being yourself, you're not being genuine, it just, what do they say? Right message, wrong messenger.
That's real. It's almost like your energy is what actually is going to communicate whether or not it's real. Like the words that ultimately are kind of inconsequential, but it's like if the energy is coming from that authentic place, it's going to be felt, like you said. You're going to feel it, or you're not going to feel it, and it could be the same exact fucking words. But it's
you ain't even got to speak English. It could be in different languages. Like, you know, like shouts to the homie Eptos in Mexico. Like you might not speak Spanish, but I guarantee you hear this dude rap, you gonna feel that. You finna feel the passion. You're finna feel the energy, and like based on his flow patterns, you're going to still be able to hear the rhyme schemes through it if you're
Right.
hip to that kind of thing and realize that he's dope. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why like I have friends all over the world in different countries, people in France that don't speak English, and they're like, yeah, I bought Tupac's album when I was 13 and I thought it was the best thing I ever heard, even because you could hear that raw passion and energy, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that bleeds through, you know what I mean?
Like you said, the soul is speaking. It's a soul to soul communication, and it's like that vibration is like it just penetrates through everything. So going back to like the other next piece of what you were saying with the battling, because you were talking about battling, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, like, which, you know, I would fundamentally like largely agree with you that like the current people who are like at the frontier in that arena are probably the most adept with language on the planet. And like what they're doing with words, with rhyme schemes, with triple entendres, like it's like beyond anything that's ever happened before. And there's no one else who uses words that is like, you know, wordsmiths that are on that level in any other arena, right? It's like they're the modern day
taking the
Shakespeare's.
tonality of words and
Right.
giving new meanings to them, breaking down words in such unique ways, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question coming back to kind of like battling for you, like in terms of like, you know, actually doing, you know, battling when you were actually doing battles yourself, when you were like more actually participating in battles as an MC, as
Mm-hmm.
well as like, yeah, and then we'll get into the next piece, but I'm curious if you could talk about how battling can kind of be healing and therapeutic, because it's also like, you know, there's a lot of, that's a complex thing, right? Because battling can also be like, people can see it as like destructive and negative, and
Right.
all
Absolutely.
these different aspects to it that could be looked at as like as something that would not necessarily be like healing or therapeutic for someone. But I'm really curious about your being so deep into that world in all the ways that you are and have been, both as an MC in battles as well as like, you know, everything you've done for the culture, and been such a, you know, not only a pioneer and kind of like a, you know, kind of pushing the culture forward, but also just like as deep in it as you could be. So yeah, I'm just really curious to hear your thoughts on that.
To me, battle rap is pretty much like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker Jedi training. It's Mr. Miyagi and Daniel's son. It's the X-Men in the danger room. You're sharpening your blade. So when you actually go out there into the world, you have the highest degree of capability to express yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're speaking truth to power, if you're,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like if you have a message you want to convey, the highest level you can do it, why not be as adept at that craft as possible? So yeah, like, so it, to me, it's not about tearing other people down. It's about getting, like, if you are competing with another MC, you want to do it at the highest level possible. And that's going to push your capabilities as an individual artist in ways that you might not even know. That's how I personally, and it's different for everybody, so I can't speak for everyone, but for me personally, that's how I evolved greatly and realized that I had much more capabilities than I ever thought. You know what I mean? It's the training, it's laying down the foundation for me to, now if you get consumed by the negativity and obsessed on just tearing other people down, then that's going to be what it is. And to me, that's a very low ceiling. But if you use it as a way to not only get more eyes on you and make a broader audience realize that they're interested in hearing what you have to say, but you're challenging yourself and trying to get as sharp as you can. And then on another level of positivity, it's pushing the art form forward and raising the bar for what everybody else is trying to do. So that's like, so that way, you know, the standard for being a dope MC is higher, and you're being held, and all your peers are being held to that standard. So now it's not just you rhyming better, flipping words better, flowing better, being more relatable on the mic, and learning all these, you know, diversifying your skill set. Everybody else has to do that as well.
Most def. So what I'm hearing from that is when you started to actually like get into battling yourself and shit, what I'm hearing is that actually like gave you a whole nother level of confidence and another level
Absolutely.
of belief in yourself. You discovered you were capable of way more than you even thought before, and it kind of gave you this like higher level of self-esteem, because now it's like it wasn't just about like your own music and your own message, speaking your own truth. It was like now you were sharpening your sword, and you were
Hmm.
mastering, you were realizing how much more you could master your craft, and that just pushed you to higher and higher levels. Is that's kind of, you know.
Very accurate. I mean, when I came up, like the West Coast has always been like the mecca of freestyling. You know what I mean? Like the whole different way, like the term of like this is a something something freestyle, but it's a rap over that specific beat. Like the it ain't hard to tell freestyle. You know what I mean? Like swimming pools freestyle, whatever. It's just the name of somebody's record. That's a New York thing, and it's a written verse typically over the beat. Like the off the dome impromptu freestyles, really, obviously they were doing that in New York, but through places, outlets like the Good Life Cafe, Project Globe, that was pushed to a much higher creative plane on the West Coast, from LA to the
Mhm.
Bay Area and beyond. And so growing up in that environment, it was ciphers everywhere.
Mhm.
And, hopping into them, it's a natural desire to be competitive is going to pop out, because when you're seeing somebody rhyme and everyone around you see, females around and they're going like, ooh, everyone's like, ooh, when they hear a dope bar, that's
Yeah.
going to make you want to be the impressive artist, and because or else no one's going to want to hear you. So if I have this content which is an expression of my soul and so important to me that if no one wants to hear it, then I'm just like screaming into a tunnel. I'm like a boy whistling in the dark, like
Yeah.
saying something but ain't nobody hearing it. So in order for me to craft my talent in a way that people want to actually absorb my message, like that was the way I would
Mm.
do it. And
Mm.
I'm not gonna front, the first time you say something that resonates with a crowd of people and you hear that ooh, every MC gets addicted at that point.
Of
there's
course.
there's not a drug you can do in the world that's going to give you that high.
So real. Yeah, because it's like not only it's like, because then you're being validated for something that's not superficial. You're getting validation from your peers, people that you respect and maybe even look up to, and they're like giving you props and validation for just how dope you are, your skills, your ability to express your truth, your soul, like, in that moment. Especially like you're talking about a cipher, that's freestyling off the top of the dome, right?
Right.
Which people who do this shit, we all know, like, it's not fucking easy. You know what I mean? Like, it's like it takes you have to practice a lot to actually develop and master that skill. And
How
so
many
when you
hours me and you freestyle together? Like literally
fucking
weeks on end.
for real, like
Like
for
literally,
real, for
I
real.
don't mean we've done it for like if you accumulated all the time, it would be like a month of our lives, just the two of us together with other homies. Like,
At
you know
least,
what
for
I mean?
sure, for
At
sure.
least.
I mean, and that's the thing, is when you do it that much, you're going to get better, right? There's no other possibility. But also, like, it's not just about getting better. It's about, like you said, you had something to say. You had a message. So it's finding a way to like actually make that message land, have it be accessible, because you're putting it together in words that are also like clever, and whether it's a punchline or whether it's just the wordplay or the rhyme scheme or the way that it fucking that it's just like so impressive, the rhythm, the delivery, the flow, the swag, whatever it is, that people are just like, damn, that shit was fire. And then they can actually hear like maybe some truth that you were actually trying to express,
Exactly.
right?
And that truth, just to bring it back to a primal level once again, like the number one affirmation that people give when they agree with something, and this is beyond hip hop, this is human beings in general. If you agree with something that someone's saying, like you just did right now, you nod your head.
Yeah.
And that's the same motion people are making in a cipher. The beat's playing, you're nodding your head. So
So
you're being
real.
conditioned to if you hear something that you don't agree with in a cipher, or like someone says something whack or someone says something wild, you'll just be like, you're gonna stop nodding your head.
So true.
But if you're nodding your head and people are nodding your head when you're expressing your truth and you're conveying a message, I want to convey this thought that I've had about what's stressing me out, about the world around me, about the government, about the conditions that we're living in, etc., the struggles, and like people are nodding their head, that is then like it's intrinsically being embedded in them, has something they believe and agree with, and then the message is conveyed.
So true, bro. That was really well said. And it's also like, that's so deep, because if you think about that, like, not only is it conveyed to them and then it lands, and that's like, think about the impact that can have on it, because we know how hip hop has had an impact on us. So we know the power of that. But also, like, then if they then give you like the, ooh, like, you know what I mean? If they're giving you the vow, then it's like reaffirming and confirming that truth in yourself, and like you internalize that on an even deeper level, and you can kind of access even more of your own power, you know what I mean, your own,
Right. That
like,
instills more confidence. And that's
mhm.
definitely did that for me. And there's nothing more therapeutic than that, being empowered, and not even from external devices, from
Exactly.
within self. You know what I mean? Like it's the equivalent of
100%.
like going to the gym, but for your soul.
That's, man, that's a really good metaphor for it. That's a really good way of like conceptualizing it. That's dope. So yeah, so I feel like, you know, that pretty much, like, you know, kind of covers the battling part of it for the most part. I'm curious though, like, what would you say about, you know, currently, in terms of like where things are at with the battle scene, with everything else, that, you know, kind of you're part of right now, in terms of all that is right now continuing to be something that is like a force for this kind of, you know, empowerment and healing and all that. Would you say that right now it is still that, and it is just getting more in that, or where would you say that, where do you feel like it is, and where do you feel like it's going right now?
It's a great question. I would say that I wouldn't say that the art of poetry and lyricism and hip hop is lost, because it's not. But you have to dig a lot deeper and look for it. And like what is being spoon fed to the masses. And when you know you're riding through the average neighborhood and hearing what's being slapped, it's beyond the fact of it being negative. It's a lot more simplistic and not as lyrically dense. So what battle rap has done in its current manifestation is created an outlet for people who still value that, you know, going pushing the art of lyricism and the poetic aspect of hip hop to the highest degree, and people that's what they're interested in. Like this is a lane that is there's a mass audience for and still exists within and outside of the context of hip hop. There's a lot of people that don't even listen to rap music but love battle rap at this point, because like
Right.
it's because
That's real.
just like, you know, like how advanced it is literary, and how the boundaries that are being pushed in that regard, and just the lyrical aspect of it all, which you don't necessarily hear in as much rap music. There are
Mhm.
very lyrical rappers, and
Mhm.
I listen to them, but the general public, there's not too many of them, with a few exceptions, that they're even aware of, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like it's gone back underground, but and almost like battle rap is almost a more commercialized and mainstream version of that than a lot of the lyrical
Mhm.
rap artists. Like it's a lot. You could have a career and actually get out the hood and feed your family through battle rap. It's become a whole industry in and of itself, and being as lyrical as possible, being as creative and original as possible. All of these aspects are celebrated and encouraged. So,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you know, if you're still and if you're really that nice at making music, it continues to sharpen your blade, and then you could transcend that to your musicality and have a very strong message for people in that regard at your utmost skill level. And there's not a lyrical rapper in the world today that isn't somewhat influenced or at least tapped into the battle rap aspect of the culture, because it's
Most def. So yeah, what I'm hearing from that is like, it's almost, it's like evolved to the point where it's like the subculture of hip hop, but now that's become more mainstream, but yet it's pushing the frontier more than the mainstream of hip hop is.
as far
So
as
then it's kind of
MCing and
like,
lyricism, absolutely.
right, as far as like what's being done with the words and with the ability to like push the boundaries of the mastery of the craft, right? But then it's more,
100%.
but then it's like more mainstream. even though it's this super underground, it started out as this super underground subculture of hip hop. So I guess I'm curious, because the other thing about it too is like, I know that, there's definitely also battle rappers that, they also like, they're not just battling because they want to get famous with their music or also just like, be the dopest battle rapper, but they also actually have something to say, that's
Right.
meaningful. And then sometimes they can
Absolutely.
find ways to like actually integrate that into their battles, right? Where they're actually like finding ways to somehow, you know, integrate aspects of social criticism and maybe even some revolutionary and knowledge, dropping all kinds of different knowledge, speaking truth to power, all that kind of stuff goes into the battle because they're actually trying to get people to fucking wake up and listen, and they know that like people really respect that shit, so they're kind of using that as a conduit for that. But yeah.
100%. If that is what you could choose to convey anything you want through the medium of hip hop and battle rap, but if you actually have a message, it's a perfect outlet, especially with the current landscape of battle rap with the beat stripped away. You know what I mean? It's just a cappella. It's just
Right.
nothing else besides your voice.
Right.
And so you could use language and like the boundaries are stripped away. It's just you and your ability to express yourself, and that's all it is. And if if you want to have a message, it's a perfect opportunity to do that. And if you're creative, you could still be competitive and attack your opponent while dropping that knowledge simultaneously. And
Right.
just to shout out people like Daylight, people like B Dot, you know what I mean? Like there's like some of the top battle rappers in the world are masters at flipping at kicking social consciousness and speaking on the plight of the people and empowerment of the community and and introducing people to concepts of different forms of oppression that we might not even be aware of, and what they've experienced and the pain that they've gone through, losing loved ones, having friends get killed, etc. All of that comes out in their battles, and not just them. There's speaking on most of the top successful battle rappers.
And they're doing that in ways that are just also incredibly fucking masterful and impressive in terms of like what they're doing with the wordplay, the triple entendres, the fucking the rhyme schemes, the like just whole nother level. So yeah, that shit is really fucking nuts. They've taken it so far beyond where like when we were like in the beginning of that whole movement, like it's just so far beyond that shit now. It's crazy to even see.
Came a long way from the mama jokes.
For real though, bro. But yeah, I would be remiss to not also mention as in that list of names, one of our staff artists actually. I'm pretty sure you know him very well, Remedy. He's actually that's the homie right there. He's actually a Rhythmic Mind staff artist. He's actually done some work with us and is going to continue to be doing hella different work with us.
Yeah, Remedy is incredible. And,
yeah, he's fucking
like
fire.
Speaking of his unique experience coming up in St. Louis and his whole perspective, and yeah, he is a perfect example of someone that uses battle rap you could learn so much about him as a person, what he's been through, his personal experiences, his triumphs and tragedies personally, and how that is a reflection of the people in general of his community and beyond. And he taps into that perfectly and is a great example.
Most def, yeah, man. Remy's the homie. We actually have an interview with him as well, so whoever's watching this, check that out because that's a pretty dope interview too.
Click the link, baby.
Yes, sir. But word, well, so yeah, man. I mean, this has been really dope. I definitely want to touch a little bit before we end on like, where you're at now and how, what I'm saying, I know you're on this journey of sobriety, which is super amazing to see. I'm super, proud of you. I'm super like
you saw the other side of it for me.
Yeah,
so
I definitely have, man. Definitely have. And yeah, it's just like I know how big of a deal that is. You know what I mean? In general for anyone, but definitely for you. And you know what I mean? And I see how committed you are to that, and how much you really are not only committed for yourself, but I really see you being out there. Really being out there as a voice for like other people, and like really trying to spread that message and help other people and be part of that that sober community, and that
Absolutely.
like a force for helping people who are struggling with that. So I mean, I know there's not like a direct connection to hip hop, but I feel like there probably is at the same time. You know what I mean? So if you could
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about that. The last thing I want to say before I want to kind of just open space for you for that is like just to tie up a loose end around what you said about like how it's like, hip hop, when you're nodding your head to the beat and shit, that's like an affirmation almost, right?
Absolutely.
It's like you're saying yes. It's like an affirmation. Every time you nod, it's like an affirmation for yourself and those around you, everyone in that community, whether it's a cipher, a show, you're listening to fucking a track, whatever it is. Um, and that's a really powerful thing, right? And then you're talking about battle rap, how like, there's no longer a beat. So it's almost like you have to find that internal rhythm. And there's still an internal rhythm. There's still a rhythm to it,
Absolutely.
right? And so people are still like able to follow a rhythm, and you have an internal rhythm, and you're finding that within yourself. But yeah, because like the other thing that, and I think there might be a way for you to tie this possibly into where we're going next. But the reason why our name is Rhythmic Mind as an organization is because there's hella science that has shown that rhythm and repetitive rhythmic patterns, which is like what is hip hop, the epitome of repetitive rhythmic patterns, right? So it's been shown in all this like groundbreaking, pioneering frontier research around trauma and the neurobiology and the neurophysiology of trauma and how it impacts the brain and central nervous system, that rhythm and repetitive rhythmic patterns are the fundamental thing that has the ability to regulate the brain and the central nervous system and allow you to gain access to the prefrontal cortex and the parts of your brain that you lose access to, that shut down as a result of trauma. So that shit
Mm.
is crazy, right? So that's why our name is Rhythmic Mind. It's not by accident. We put a lot of thought into that shit. And the whole idea that like rhythm, in that is that kind of regulatory tool, which is really powerful, because what that means is that if you've gone through a lot of trauma in your life, then you've lost access to these higher parts of your brain, and you're more in a fight or flight state a lot of the time. Some people are constantly in that fight or flight state, especially if you're in an environment.
The lizard brain.
Yeah, 100%. And especially if you're in like the hood or any environment that's extremely traumatic on a constant chronic basis. You know what I mean? Like you're dealing with you're being exposed to trauma every day on many, many levels. So you never are able to necessarily be in a safe zone. So you're kind of living in that fight or flight space, and you're losing access to the limbic, which is the emotional kind of and memory part of the brain, and then the prefrontal cortex, which is like your highest cognitive capacities, where like your optimal zone of functioning, your executive functioning. So you lose access to that as a result of trauma. But rhythm and repetitive rhythmic patterns allow you to regain access to that part of your brain. And then,
And that makes perfect sense.
right?
And it makes perfect sense. And that scientifically breaks it down so well. And I think just in a real concise, palatable way, how I would relate that is it's the awakening of the soul, which is the
Mm,
connection between the mind and the heart. And what's the heart?
100%.
It's a beat. It's a consistent beat. It's the
Straight up.
rhythm. So the rhythm of your soul being reawakened, and there it is. You know what
That's
I mean?
hella real. And then it's allowing you to access your higher self. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Because your soul is awakened, so now you can access, which is why hip hop is such a powerful thing, because it's not just like it's like you said, you go into other fucking portals and dimensions and shit. Like it opens up places that you don't have access to otherwise. When you're freestyling or writing or whatever it is, whatever it could be, other elements of hip hop too. It's like you're able to access like greater infinite intelligence, like wisdom that you wouldn't possess just from your ego self, just from like,
Right.
you know what I mean, just from your own experience in life. And you pull from that too, but it's like there's this deeper level. It's like you're accessing your higher self, you're accessing whatever you want to call it. You call it God, you could call it the source, you could call it, you know what I'm saying, spirit, whatever it is, but it's that infinite intelligence, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm hearing from you. You awaken your soul, it also opens your third eye, and then you have access to this like other place that has so much power and so much wisdom. And if you pull from that, what you're channeling from that is like universal truth. essentially.
And here's a way I could tie that into the other question you asked
Word.
about recovery.
Yeah.
Perfect segue. My
Yeah.
man with the John Stockton, here's a Karl Malone. Is that at no point in that description did you mention using any external devices such as drugs to stimulate that process, because it is not a necessary component of that spiritual and mental growth. It's just not. It has nothing to do with it. And that's something that for me personally, you know, I had addiction issues before that. And there is nothing that anything could do to, no human power could remove that from me, you know, like, and it became a part of my persona, even within hip hop, and the way I express myself within hip hop and all creative endeavors were kind of linked to me getting outside my body and with the use and abuse of substances. Now, at a certain point, I was scared. It was like the lion that lost his roar. You know what I mean? Like I thought that I needed that in order to express myself, which wasn't the case when I first started. You know what I mean? And it's not the case now. In fact, being sober, and it's not just about being sober. That's a huge part of it, but living life on a spiritual basis, striving on a daily basis to be the best person I can and contribute positively to life. That's so much more. That right there, I'm so much more useful as an artist. I have full employment of my mental faculties. I can fire on all cylinders and express myself and my truth and my reality and make it way more digestible to other people and not be inhibited by things that I thought were helping me, you know, like, which is just an illusion. Like I thought that, oh, the drugs are making me have more personality. They're making me sound better. They're giving swag to what I'm doing. But in reality, none of that was true. None of that was true, and I'm way more proficient on a just technical level, more on point with my flow, more on point with my bars, my vocal control, my breath control, my projection. All of that I'm way more proficient of an artist, and what I'm saying and conveying a message that, you know, I'm not saying that everything has to be 100% positive, but it's so much more true to myself. And I don't have the barriers of trying to fit into a specific mold because of my ambitions that got kind of distracted and detracted as a result of my drug use. So now it's just me being able to be way more authentic as well.
Man, so what I'm hearing from that, I mean, so many things. What I'm hearing with that last piece is like you've kind of regained some clarity around who you are and who you really want to be in terms of like what you actually contribute and what you express through your music, without kind of an agenda that's being pushed maybe by motivations that are misplaced.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? So whether that's for more validation or to fill a void or money or women or fame, whatever it is that would be kind of
it's
maybe
operating on that lizard frequency you were talking about. It's like operating out of fight or flight mode. It's being way less tapped in to my true self, and to, you know what I mean, is operating from a lower vibration as a being.
Lower vibration and ego consciousness and a survival consciousness that's also that's coming from a place of like lack. There's something missing.
Yep.
So I have to fill that void, and I'm not good enough the way I am. It's like, right? So what I'm hearing from that though is like that's what the illusion that you're waking up from, or that, and you hopefully, what I'm hearing is you now have woken up from, is that was an illusion, was that something was missing, that there was this lack, and that you needed drugs to like give you you know, kind of an external manifestation of who you were that was going to be better than what it would be without it. And so now you've realized that that's an illusion. But what I'm also hearing is you've kind of returned to hip hop as that fundamental thing that already makes you good enough, that already gives you
100%.
enough confidence and self-esteem and the ability to know your own self-worth without any external validation or devices, and allows you to then move even further into your power and into your truth, and even further into your authentic swag and skill and like mastery of the skill and just everything that so in some ways what you thought was giving you more is actually was obscuring the truth, and now you're actually showing you actually have even more potential without it, and you're stepping more into that.
100%. I could get way deeper into my bag, 100%. You know what I mean? And like just able, like you said it perfectly, bro. You know what I mean? Like I'm able to express myself on a way more proficient level and now I don't need any of the external devices, which I began to start leaning on in time, and I can receive. And not only that the response and the validation I get from creating art that people can truly feel and resonate with them on a deeper level, then adds more reinforcement to that, you know. And even if I wasn't playing music for anybody and it was just me for myself, I'm now leaning fully on that outlet and utilizing it. And like I said, like, you know, spiritual gymnastics in the form of hip hop, that's right there. It's the most therapeutic thing in the world. It's beyond the prayer and the meditation that I do and the service work of helping others. That's the most fulfilling thing in my life.
That's still your medicine. It's still the way that you choose to kind of heal and transform yourself and hopefully the world in some way.
And like I said earlier, it literally that gets me higher than any drug I've ever tried. And unfortunately, I've tried them all. So
I heard that. Well, and then last thing too, what I heard there too was like, which was really powerful, is that like, not only are you, it's like because you're now moving into this higher frequency of consciousness, you're operating on a higher vibration, because you're realizing you're coming back to your true inner power, your true inner strength, and also largely in the form of hip hop, right? And because you're returning to that, you're getting more praise and more validation, because it's almost like there's an energy field that now has like expanded and broken through what was a barrier before. And so now it's like more doors can open, and more, you don't do it for the validation, but automatically you're going to get more validation. You're going to get more
absolutely
reinforcement of what you're doing, because it's not coming from, you know, that place that was maybe, you know, misled or
and I'm not going to be oblivious to it or aloof, which drugs tends to make people. Like you might even be getting that validation, but it's not actually resonating with you because you're so in your own world. You know what I mean? And I'm so much more present as a result of not being on drugs.
And then you feel like because it's not really landing, then you kind of need more of it all the time.
Right.
So then you're going to use either that drug to kind of make you feel better and escape that pain, or you're going to try to seek it out more and more and more, because it's never enough, because you're always feeling that lack, and you're not actually feeling you're not validating yourself. You're not getting it from within.
100%. And like for me, like to summarize everything we've been talking about, hip hop just really got me in touch with my inner self, gave me an outlet to confront my fears, my insecurities, and almost embrace them, as well as usurp them. You know what I mean? Like get over them and not really be affected by them. And it's the biggest source of personal growth that I've ever felt as an individual. And, you know, and that's why I've dedicated my life to it.
100, man. Word. Well, fucking, yeah, this was dope. Fucking, you know, we definitely need to kick it proper. Sometime soon, bro. Like, actually, like, fucking cypher. You know what I'm saying?
Outside the matrix.
For real. 100%. So yeah, let's make sure we tap in soon. Hopefully, you know, you can come to the Bay, or at some point I could smash out to LA. But yeah, man, this has been dope, man. I feel like everything you said, you know, is there's so much truth and so much power and wisdom, and I think that for a lot of people who are struggling in different ways, you know, that if they really hear everything that we've talked about, it could really help them. So
that means more to me than I could ever properly express. And it's definitely one of the dopest conversations I think I've ever had recorded. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And I've had quite a bit. So I'm psyched on it. And Thank you so much for the opportunity. And anybody who is watching this, I hope y'all do get something from it. And if anyone happens to be struggling with addiction issues or wants to have any conversations exploring that and transcending that, especially via hip hop, reach out to me, hit me up, on social media. I'm very responsive, and bless all y'all, man. Much love.
Most def, man. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge you too for like everything you're doing, man. You know what I'm saying? Being a voice out there and all the, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, and everything you've done, you've had a crazy journey, but you've also definitely contributed amazing things to the culture of hip hop, to battle rap culture. You know what I mean? You've done a lot. So, I acknowledge you for that, and to be where you're at now and coming to that space of like being on this journey, your spiritual journey, your life journey of sobriety and everything else involved, especially, at the core of that the healing and transformative and therapeutic power of hip hop, which is, what I'm saying? So much of a universal, powerful force that is like, I think we probably both say like the most powerful fucking force in the universe. So,
Dude, age, race, gender, orientation, socioeconomic background, none of that matters when it comes to this culture. It's all about expressing who you are, what makes you unique, and if you're being true to yourself, you can find fulfillment through this art form and culture.
most dev, man. So yeah, I just give you props. You're doing great work, man. So keep it
You're
up.
doing great work, dude.
Thank you,
Like
bro.
straight up, this is an incredible platform. What you're doing, and especially working with the youth, bro. Like I wish that when I was a kid, that I didn't that had people coming to my school teaching me stuff like that. That's incredible.
Word. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, and, in the future, hopefully we can maybe build on some shit together. Um,
Absolutely, brother.
Word, man. Well, yeah, this has been amazing. So let's definitely tap in soon. You know what I'm saying? Spit some bars and kick it proper.
Much love to the people. You know we coming.
Yes, sir.